Muna turned on her heels and stormed out, her heart shattered beyond repair. Desmond moved to follow her, but Beatrice grabbed his wrist. Let her go. He looked down at her, his stomach churning with guilt and shame. Beatrice, I can't lose her. You already did, Beatrice said simply. Now focus on what matters. Desmond stared at her, realizing that he had made a deal with the devil, and there was no turning back. Days passed. Desmond tried reaching out to Muna, but she ignored his calls. And Beatrice on the other side wouldn't let Desmond off her sight. He wasn't just her crush, he was now her sex slave. And Desmond, on the other hand, had been caged by her charm. He wants to be free, but at the same time, he is drowning in obsession for Beatrice. She was his weakness. As she poisons him with her body and seduction, his flesh gets weaker, as he finds himself in between her laps without counts. In a moment of desperation, he tries to end things with Beatrice. I can't do this anymore, he told her as he got himself off the bed in their hotel room after yet another sex ride with Beatrice. I need to fix my life. I need to fix things with Muna. Beatrice laughed softly, her voice filled with a twisted amusement. Fix things, she repeated. Oh, Desmond, I can't do. You're not going anywhere. Desmond frowned. Beatrice, I mean it. It's over. This whole thing just has to stop. It was never supposed to start in the first place, but I guess I allowed my ambition to steal the best part of me. I have never cheated on Muna until you sneaked your way into our life. Beatrice, on the other hand, leaned back against the plush seat, watching him carefully. Well, she said, you wouldn't deny that I have also offered you so much more than she has ever offered you. You don't just own my body, you've had to enjoy life in a short time, more than you have in the decades you've spent with your so-called Muna. So stop crying like a baby, and grow up already, Desmond. I love you, Desmond, and what has Muna got that I haven't given you, even more? Desmond was even more frustrated at this time. And he exclaimed, Beatrice, what exactly do you want from me? I thought this was just one of those flings, but no. I had a life before you came. Why pretend like you didn't know I love Muna? And we were supposed to have been married by now if not for your selfish quests. I love my fiancé, and my life would be miserable without Muna. Please let me go. Her next words shattering his world. I'm pregnant. Beatrice slammed. Desmond's body nearly sank into his body. His mouth wide open, as his breath caught in his throat. What? He whispered. Beatrice smirked. You heard me. You're going to be a father. A cold sweat broke out on Desmond's forehead. His mind raced. This couldn't be happening. No, he muttered. You're lying. Beatrice chuckled. Am I? I guess we'll find out in a few months. Desmond clenched his jaw. This had to be a trick. A way to keep him tied to her. But what if it was true? Panic set in. But he made a decision. He wouldn't let her control him anymore. He left her in the hotel room and went straight to Muna. He had to fix things. He got to Muna's apartment, slamming the door. And when Muna couldn't stand the noise anymore, there she stands, opened the door. What do you want, Desmond? Why are you here? Go back to your sugar mummy. He pushed himself through, as she slowly raised into her kitchen area. He followed after her, pleading. There on his knees, still pleading. Through pleading, apologies, and desperate efforts, Desmond convinced Muna to take him back. But he never told her about Beatrice's pregnancy. Never trust someone that lied to you once. Through pleading, apologies, and desperate efforts, Desmond convinced Muna to take him back. She never found out about the pregnancy. The wedding plan was back on. Muna loves Desmond too much. Forgiving him was easy. Desmond, on the other hand, mistook Beatrice's silence as a victory. He went on with his daily life as if nothing ever happened. He worked hard to prove himself to Muna. He started to ignore Beatrice's calls, and wouldn't reply to her emails or messages. The wedding plans went on. He took Muna on dinners, and promised her the world. On the big day, Desmond stood at the altar with Muna. She looked stunning in her white gown, a picture of grace and beauty. He exhaled. This was his second chance. He whispered to himself. The priest smiled, and went on with the wedding vows proper, but before then he said, "If anyone here has any reason why these two should not be joined in holy matrimony, speak now or forever hold your peace." Silence. Desmond felt relief wash over him. Then, a voice rang through the church. "I do." Gasps echoed through the room. Desmond's blood ran cold. He turned slowly, and there, standing in the crowd, was Beatrice. Dressed elegantly, her makeup flawless, and she stepped forward shamelessly. A collective gasp filled the church. "I'm pregnant with the groom's child," Beatrice announced, loud and clear. Muna's bouquet slipped from her hands. Desmond's world came crashing down. For a moment, the world stood still. The grand cathedral, once filled with joyous anticipation, now suffocated under the weight of shock and scandal. The priest's lips parted, but no words came out. The guests, dressed in their finest attire, exchanged wide-eyed glances, whispering in hushed tones. And at the center of it all stood Desmond, exposed, destroyed, ruined. His heart pounded violently as he stared at Beatrice. Dressed in a breathtaking lace gown, her lips painted a sinful shade of red, she smirked. That cruel, victorious smirk. And just below her perfectly tailored dress, her rounded stomach protruded unmistakably. Muna, his bride, his love, his future, stood frozen beside him. She turned to him slowly, her once loving eyes now void of warmth. "Desmond, is this true?" Her voice was barely above a whisper, but the accusation in it stabbed through his soul. He wanted to deny it. He wanted to tell her Beatrice was lying, that this was all a scheme or maybe a cruel, well-crafted trap. But as he stared at Beatrice's confident expression, the gleam of triumph in her eyes, he knew. She had planned this. Every single moment. Was Beatrice really pregnant? Or was this one of her tricks? Oh, I had played right into her hands. He whispered with regrets. His voice failed him. Beatrice took a step forward, resting a delicate hand on her stomach. "Oh, it's very true, darling." She let out a small, satisfied sigh. "Your beloved groom is the father of my child. And you know what's funny?" She tilted her head, feigning innocence. He knew. The church erupted. Gasps. Murmurs. A scream from the back. Muna took a sharp breath, her body trembling. Her mother clutched her chest, while her father rose from his seat, eyes burning with rage. Desmond reached for Muna. "Muna, please." And Muna gave him a slap that echoed like a gunshot. Muna's palm collided with his face, her nails scraping against his skin. Tears burned in her eyes, but fury burned brighter. "You betrayed me." Her voice cracked. "You destroyed us." Desmond stumbled back, eyes filled with desperation. "Muna, please listen." Muna, broken and in tears, turned, lifted her gown, and ran down the aisle. Desmond felt his chest cave in. Beatrice, however, simply smiled, watching her leave. Ah, she sighed dramatically. I do love weddings. So emotional. Desmond's hands curled into fists. You ruined my life. Beatrice arched a brow, mocking him. I gave you everything, Desmond. I made you rich and powerful. And now, I'm giving you an heir. She caressed her stomach. A legacy. Desmond's vision blurred with rage. You set me up. Beatrice chuckled. Oh, darling. You set yourself up. You agreed to the dinner. You agreed to the gifts. You agreed to the trips. And now, she sighed, you will also agree to this child. Desmond's entire body shook. I will never claim this child. Beatrice stepped forward, lowering her voice so only he could hear. Then I'll destroy you. His stomach dropped. What? Desmond's blood ran cold. She had trapped him. Completely. Oh, I finally made a deal with the she-devil, and there was no way out. Oh God, I am finished.